Good afternoon, everybody. We are hoping that you're having a great day and that things are going well for you in the current situation that we are all living in on a national basis within the UK and also globally. We are very pleased to have with us today Shirley Collier, who is an executive coach, but also does a lot of mentoring about mental resilience and personal health. She's here with us today to share lessons learned so far from the first 6 to 7 months of the pandemic and the lockdowns that we've been living with and have to keep adapting to, and some great lessons and points that I think that can all help our businesses take forward, both on a personal basis in terms of taking care of ourselves, but also things that could apply to your day to day. Shirley, thank you so much for being here, and I'll pass over to you.
Thanks very much, Adrian, and hello to everyone who's either with us live or is going to catch up on catch up. It's really lovely to be with you, and it's great to have an opportunity actually to reflect about what I've learned and what I've done differently as a result of the extraordinary year that we're living through. So I was thinking about the lessons I've learned and things that would be helpful to share or could be helpful to share, and that's what I'm going to spend the next few minutes on, and then I'm hoping that we're going to be able to have a chat about that, because everybody's experience is different. That's one of the things that I've become much more aware of, is that generalizations are a bit dangerous and can be quite upsetting for people. So the first thing I'll say is this is my experience. It doesn't necessarily ring true for others. But interestingly, within 2 weeks of lockdown, I think my stress had multiplied and gone through the roof. And I wasn't enormously conscious of it at the time. But things which were always stressful definitely got more so. Some of those big existential fears became larger. I had to really look them in the eye. What if I can't earn enough money to pay my bills? What if I'm not good enough? Some of the things which used to be stress-free became stressful, like trying to book an online shopping order, waking up at 3 o'clock in the morning because that's when the slots got released. Some of the things I used to do to alleviate stress were no longer possible, just like everybody else, going for a coffee with a friend. For me, swimming and singing in my choir, both of which were things that definitely kept me sane pre-lockdown. And some of the things I could do to relieve stress were still possible, but I was too exhausted to do them. And the main one of those was keeping in touch with friends. So no surprises, I got super stressed. And I've also had conversations with clients in the last few months looking back at their experience of lockdown, and there's some real similarities there as well. So fast forward a few months, here we are, beginning of October, and I'm in a really different place now. I know how to live and work under the same roof with the same person 24/7 if I have to. I've got costs under control. I'm no longer subscribing to expensive and underused services. I know what my productive times of day are, and I really use them wisely. And I manage my time much better. I also realise I'm a better negotiator than I thought I was, and I'm connected again to the people who sustain me. So those changes have come about as a result, clearly, of lots of learning about myself. And the reason I'm going to share it today is because it's really simple. And if somebody had shared it with me at the beginning, I think I might have made some of these changes sooner. So I call the approach Centre First. It's a mindset, it's a mental approach. It took me about an hour the first time I embarked on it, and now just 5 minutes a day keeps me sane. So what I did was I carved out an hour of peace and quiet, uninterrupted time, and I fully accept that for some people that sounds like an unaffordable luxury, and I was one of those people. In the middle of March, I would have said to you, I don't have an hour of peace and quiet time to myself, but by about the middle of June, I realised it was necessary. I took a really hard look at my life, the life I was leading then, not the one I used to lead before we'd heard of coronavirus, but I thought about my own businesses, I've got 2, my other work, I'm on the board of a couple of organisations, my family and my friends. And I grabbed a paper and some pen and I drew myself at the centre of a page. And all those other things, my work, family, my friends, they were all around the edge. And then I drew lines, like the spokes of a wheel, lines that joined me to each of those other parts of my life. And then I thought about the energy and the quality of those relationships. And if the relationship used up more of my energy than it replaced, then I put an arrow onto the line pointing towards the other person, pointing away from me. And if the relationship was one that built up my energy, If I got more out of it than I was giving to it, then I drew the arrow on the line where it joined me. Now, as an aside, as a coach, I know that what tends to happen in relationships, both at work, but also with friends and family, is that when the relationship is about giving more than it is about receiving, we move out of central position and the other person or the thing, our work, moves into the center. And if we're not careful, there are too many areas of our life where we are not only not at the center anymore, but we're sometimes not even on the page. And when we're not on the page, we're out of sight, and that's when our well-being and our resilience becomes an issue. So once I'd got my really messy drawing, and let's face it, which of us doesn't have a messy, complex, complicated life, I looked to see how many of those arrows were pointing towards me. Those were the ones that kept me centered, kept me grounded, energized me rather than exhausting me. And I looked at the ones where the arrows were pointing away towards other people. And I realized that the sheer number of them pointing away meant that my well-being was at risk. Not because those people meant me harm, but because in order to stay healthy, sometimes we need to be center and first. We need to receive as well as give, and we need to recharge our energy as well as using it up. So that was my hour of hard work. That's the bit about knowing whether or not I'm at the center. The 5 minutes a day is where I check in with that drawing of myself. First thing in the morning, I look at the direction of the arrows and decide what I'm going to do each day. And I've got choices. I can accept that drawing as it is. I can decide that some parts of it need to change. And I can also work out what the change is that's needed. So when I did my drawing, I was really sad as I could no longer draw on some of the things that used to sustain me. I couldn't swim, I couldn't sing, and I couldn't meet up with friends for a coffee. I was no longer ringing my friends who don't live where I do because apparently I was too tired. So not only were there these gaps, but my whole drawing had these arrows pointing away from me. And even my work, which I used to love, came down to a series of arrows going away, things that drained me. So the decision I made was that I couldn't carry on like that. That wasn't acceptable, and I needed to make some changes. The changes I made were really small, but have added up to a whole lot of wellness. So the first thing I did was I changed my meetings to less than an hour. This was a big thing for me. I'm somebody who likes a long meeting, but with only a handful of exceptions, I now only meet, whether it's phone or Zoom, for 45 minutes. And the 15 minutes after a call is spent decompressing, putting the papers away, making notes. It's not followed immediately by another call. The second thing is that when I'm planning the work that I need to do, not the meetings, it's also now planned in small chunks. So even if I know that something's going to take an hour and a half, there's a break in my calendar after the first 45 minutes, and then I pick up again. And I've discovered that flexibility is absolutely essential because everyone's lives have been disrupted. So in order to accommodate all the little changes that everyone's making at the moment, I need to be more flexible. And working and meeting for smaller chunks of time has given me that flexibility. And I know it's appreciated by clients, and I've got new clients as a result of people referring and saying, Shirley will work with you, she'll work around you. And then the final thing I did was I reconnected. Each week, I got back in touch with a couple more people, just for half an hour on the phone or even quarter of an hour, and I rebuilt that network of loving friends and work acquaintances and former colleagues. It's still a work in progress. I can't sing at the moment, and to be honest, nothing replaces that. I always joke that it's the only team sport I've ever done, and I can't do it at the moment, and probably not for the foreseeable future either. And I still can't go and sit in the steam room, which used to be my treat after swimming. But at least when I do the drawing of me now, more of the arrows are pointing towards me than away. And I know that I'm staying really well. So that's my lockdown learning kind of summarized in a quick snapshot. And a pen and paper, the drawing was really the thing that unlocked the learning for me. So Adrian, what are your thoughts? Are you a pen and paper type woman? Do you draw?
I am a pen and paper type woman, and I also have a whiteboard in my office to help me keep track of things and online project management tools to support that within our business to help with the organizing. As a business owner with a family, I find it very critical that being able to juggle all the deadlines, both within the business and managing all the dynamics that still have to happen with family, that's absolutely essential at the end of the day.
Yeah.
And so really listening to you in this center first philosophy, one of the things that I'm interesting to know about is how have you managed the prioritization? You've created time for yourself, but prioritization of tasks and managing some of those challenges that have now presented itself in the current
Sure.
environment we're all living and working in.
Sure. So I think I probably do three things. And the first one is that I am much more realistic about what could be done. So I love a list. I love a long list. I feel comfortable, if I'm honest. Once I've written down everything that might need to be done, I get a comfort from thinking, okay, that's as bad as it can be. That's the whole list. But I also recognize that it's unrealistic in terms of time to think that all that could be achieved. And even having those things on the list actually makes me feel inadequate. On a bad day, I look at that list and think, you're not the person you used to be. The old person would have got through that list, which is really not productive thinking. So in order to be kinder, I do write a long list, but I also then get a red pen and I only highlight the ones which I believe would be detrimental to me and to others if they didn't get done. And putting the others in the mix is really important. So a number of the organisations I work with have people with young families, men and women who are parents, some very young grandparents who are really involved at the moment. And I always say to them, family comes first. When we get out the other end of this, or, you know, when we're 86 and we're looking back, we're not going to think, oh, I wish I worked differently and harder during lockdown. I wish I'd seen less of my children. We're more likely to be saying the other way around. I wish I'd spent more time with family. So I think family comes first. I think short lists are really healthy. And I think you have to cut a deal with yourself that says it's not helpful to make a list to beat myself up with. It's only helpful to focus on the stuff which will be detrimental if it doesn't get done. And I'm a lot more honest with myself about that now. Because to be honest, there are not that many things where you'll fall off a cliff if they don't get done today. So I think that's my thought.
I think we would 100% agree with you. As a family first company, knowing that the important things that have to come first in life, those are the things that have to be taken care of and should be, because they're moments that can't be recaptured at the end of the day, and don't want to have to live with any sort of regret about it on that basis. Taking those factors then into consideration and building on that some, what would you say to a business owner who now has remote teams, or people who might be remote working part-time, part in the office, and helping them to find the right balance between both supporting their teams and then also feeling like that they are quality assuring their work enough, not oversight, if that makes sense, in terms of the granular. You know, we've seen some very unhealthy articles about companies installing monitoring software and the like on PCs and stuff. How would you help them find that balance between having the confidence of doing the right thing for the people that they look after who are in their employ, and then at the same time, then the needs to get the business done and having confidence that those deadlines, those commitments are being met?
It's a really good question, Adrian. And I think that balance between quality assurance and looking after the whole person is a really important one. And it's become even more important now that we're working remotely. So one of the things I've noticed with clients, I do some work with groups of people within organisations. One of my clients has made it an absolute priority that everybody gets together on Zoom and talks together about their work, because things were getting very siloed very quickly. And what I've noticed, because I sit in on some of those meetings just as an observer, I've noticed that the accountability piece, the quality assurance, if you like, is now more of a shared task, because everybody's got actually a much better understanding of each other's work because they've listened more. That's one of my observations about Zoom, is that the quality of meeting time sometimes improves. And I've watched some of that quality assurance process happening at a peer-to-peer level, which has relieved the business owner of always being the one driving it. And that we've actually had a sort of debrief after the meeting, and I said to her, did you notice what was happening when, you know, this person and that person were talking about the quality of their work and the knock-on effect if quality wasn't quite where it should be? And she hadn't noticed it. So the second time I was in one of those meetings, I just said to her beforehand, just keep an eye out, it'll happen again. And sure enough, it did. So the change she's made is that she she decided to view quality improvement and quality assurance as a development exercise with her staff. So for the ones who probably do need the support, she now approaches it as a development exercise, and she also does it on the phone rather than by Zoom. For them, being able to hear the quality of each other's conversation is more important than being able to eyeball each other. So I think those are the two things I've noticed. Is one is this peer-to-peer quality assurance, which goes along with building a team where dependencies are well understood. But the second piece, I think, is back to prioritization, prioritizing those people where you have more concerns, but being more human about it. So a phone call rather than Zoom, and a discussion about what do you need most help with, which bits are you finding hardest, rather than going in with the, have you yet addressed these problems?
Excellent. And Shirley, then to wrap up and kind of to bring this all together in the piece, what would you say that your top 3 tips as part of this to ensure that you are giving your best self, whether you're a business owner, whether you're a team member, and ensuring that you're meeting the needs of your clients and your customers? How would you take personal resilience from that space to the outputs that you're delivering, particularly on your own experience, because you're having to keep doing this? And you've mentioned some of this is Center First, but if we really focus on what your top 3 tips, whether it's through your methodology and approach or other things that you've seen with your own customers, what would those be?
I think that the absolute first one would be spend time with yourself. And I know it's really hard for business owners, and particularly for women, to find that time on their own. But I think it's essential that we spend quality time with ourselves and don't allow ourselves to be pulled in every which way direction. And if we can build that to a habit, I said that I've got better at negotiating during lockdown, and I surely have. Even if what I negotiate is only 15 minutes of me time spent on my own, then that makes me a more productive co-worker. It definitely makes me a more empathetic listener, and I do a lot of listening personally and professionally. So I think carving out that little bit of regular time to be on my own with myself is really important. I think making new habits stick is hard for all of us. And so this business of 45-minute slots for me in my calendar has been essential, but it gets eroded very quickly. I've got clients who would prefer to have me for an hour and a half because that's what they're used to. I've got close family members who think nothing of ringing on a Sunday morning and chatting for 2 hours. So actually that negotiating for what I know works is really important, and it's a habit that I'm still working on. And I think my third thing probably is about staying connected. It's making sure that as well as I spend time on my own, I also connect with the network of people, not just the 2 or 3 who are in my bubble, but actually the people who have a different worldview, whose experience of lockdown is different, whose experience of life is different. So I think those would be my things: is be with myself, stick to the new habits, and stay connected.
That's great advice, Shirley, and I think points that all of us can take away. You've shared some really great things with us today and everybody in our Facebook group. So I really want to thank you for making your time available to help us and support us. To everybody who has been listening or will be listening, as the case may be, we will be posting Shirley's link to her LinkedIn profile underneath our post in the video, as she's currently going through new website development, and it has her contact details and the best way to reach her for support. Shirley has been great helping us and some of our team members and teammates through the work she's been doing. And we'd love to open up that contact for you if you felt that, you can get some additional value and touch base with her. Thank you so much for your time today.
Thank you, Adrian. Bye-bye.
Bye.